In prison, I was never depressed. We were too busy to get depressed. We would get disappointed. Like when I jumped out the boat, I had nothing. My whole mission and my plan is not to go back to prison and to save these young people. I want to be known for doing good.
This is a series of real people telling real stories, first person, in their own words. Recidivism, the tendency of a convicted person to relapse into criminal behavior. But for our speakers, there is no turning back. The story of Gene Porter Jr. Can you imagine being arrested for a crime you didn't commit? How would you feel? What would you do? The deck is stacked against you, and you hear the judge say, "Guilty." Well, you don't have to wonder about this man's story. He tells you in full detail.
1993, I was convicted of a murder, which I didn't commit. I spent 18 years of my life in prison.
Porter was born on March 8th of 1976. The Ohio native moved to Virginia the summer of 1988.
Most of my family, my mother's side of the family is from Virginia. That's what made us migrate or get here. My father's family is from the Porters. They're from Kentucky and from Cincinnati.
Was it tough transitioning from Cincinnati to here in Virginia?
Oh, no, we really moved on the strength of I was a somewhat hard-headed child. Difficulties at home with my mother, my father not being there, not just because he didn't want to, but my mother ended up moving to Virginia the summer of '88 with an old childhood boyfriend, which moved us here. And the transition, at first it was different because it was like moving from the city to the country, but it was more family on my mother's side. The family members that lived in Virginia, I used to see them. They used to come to Ohio every summer. And with them coming to visit every summer, I kind of knew who they were. So it was like coming home to be around family more so. That's why we moved. And to a lot of stuff to stop the little bit of trouble I was getting into, to stop it, you know.
Was it easy making friends here in Virginia?
I've always been a real friendly person, real friendly guy, even young. I always wanted the best for the people around me. So yeah, it wasn't hard, it wasn't difficult, like making friends. I never really had that problem. All right, so right here behind me is 1900, bit of 1900. This is the building where my mother lived at. The first window, so you got the living room, the kitchen. The first window is my room, where I used to live at. The middle window, my little sisters, and the back was my mother stayed at. Yeah, like I said before, there's a lot of memories. I think probably one of my second fights was in this area. All this grass and stuff, it wasn't out here. It was too many kids running around playing. My mom used to come, like this banister wasn't even here. My mom used to cook out here. Used to have her grill out here, and she would cook. Miss Vanessa cooked for the whole neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? Bring some hot dogs, put them on the grill. Like DuPont Gardens did have a lot of great memories for us because it was a place when we moved here. My mother moved from Richmond and moved down here closer to family. When I was visiting the week of the crime, I was living in Norfolk, so I came to visit my family. I was in a group home. I got released from Beaumont and was released to a group home, and was on my way out of the group home and stuff. Was halfway in the group home, halfway out, and I was back home. I was not supposed to come back to Hopewell. Officially, how the probation, they didn't really want me because they had labeled me a menace to this area because I got into the drug game pretty early, and I was like kind of a little hardcore kid, didn't go for too much bull crap. but I set up and made a bad reputation. Like everybody in this area, like I told you, it was Dub, Lebanon, kind of had a bad reputation. So coming from, everybody was afraid of DuPont Gardens kids because they knew what they were capable of. They could fight, but you wouldn't think it was as bad growing up, you know, because we didn't even understand. I don't think we understood what bad was. It was just us having fun and loving each other. But this was where I was at the day Danny McClure got killed.
So now let's go to the fateful night where things happened. Can you tell us the date?
Yeah, so it was in 1993, November. I had that week of Thanksgiving, I had came to stay with my mother because I had been in trouble. Well, I had started getting in trouble in Virginia. Let's say that. I had started running in the streets, running away, hanging with the bad crowd in Virginia between Richmond and Hopewell, Petersburg. So I had kind of like built up a reputation that, you know what I'm saying, if you mess with my family, I was that person. I was the little big cousin that would always fight and things of that nature. Learn how to sell drugs early, learn how to my first job on the criminal side, besides stealing, which made me stop stealing, was calling, I was a watch out guy, you know what I'm saying, calling, hey, one time coming for that 5-0, stuff like that, and I used to get paid for that. So then I started working for somebody, you know what I'm saying, I was getting a 70-30 split, you know, so did that for a while, but that wasn't, my mother always taught me to be a leader, you know, even in the street, she was like, you keep following guys. She always taught me about business and things early at age, so working 70-30 wasn't hitting for me. So I was like, man, I need to find it. So I ran off with the pack on my guy. Told him that the police chased me and I threw it, but I kept it and ended up starting working for myself, me and my best friend. So that was the part that really elevated to where I got more street cred and had my own little money. I used to I still stayed in Richmond, but I used to come to Hopewell and visit and take all my homeboys and stuff to the club and to the teen club, pay everybody way in, things like that. And for a long time, my mother didn't know I was selling drugs, you know, because I really was by all those codes. Don't have stuff in the house and all that stuff. My little sisters knew, you know, because me and my sisters, we had a bond, my two baby sisters. So they would see they see drugs and I would show them whatever they wanted for Christmas and stuff, I would buy it, you know. So I was always the guy that found something. I always, you know, where you get this from? Well, I found it. Or somebody gave it to me. So it was certain situations like that. I was incarcerated for 18 years of my life for a murder I didn't commit. And so in that incarceration, even one part of this documentary, we went back to the scene of the crime. And afterwards and during, it was really a touching moment for me because I went to an area that they say I took a man's life and I had no connection to that space. It was no energy, even with the film crew and everybody there and they saying, with questions, I couldn't tell you exactly, okay, he got killed over here or this is where it happened. I didn't know. I just know this is the place where they said I killed him.
So where were you the night of?
It was in the daytime. It was a day. I was in the daytime. I was in an area called King's Court. I was in a house full of people. I was visiting family. And the person who lied on me, I had saw him earlier that day. I had saw him when he was telling the story. Right here. So when he got there, he pulled out, I walked up, he was like, man, Danny got shot. So I'm like, I said, who was that? He said, Smokey on. So he leaned on the car. So I leaned on the car, so he pulled the drugs and the gap there, people out of his pocket. And he was like, man, he got shot in his head. So I was like, yo, so they said Keisha and Werman was there. I said, oh, if they was there, they gonna tell what happened. So he went behind the house and hid the drugs and dipped, you know what I'm saying? There used to be a barbershop right there on the corner. Where that store is, it used to be a barbershop. You know what I'm saying? We just been right there with trouble. Hard to take those. But that's so they said that I made it from here to where I'm gonna show you at the crossing how I make it on foot. Now this is taking the nose where we at now. You right from here to the crossing. That's what they said. That's what, cause dude got killed at the crossing. Yeah, then got.
One true hot. Oh,
I did 18 years.
I
had saw him when he was telling the story about what happened. You know what I'm saying? Because we was all standing out in this area of the heights, and he was telling us what happened. And even the words that he said to me out of his mouth, like, you don't know him. Because I was always that dude, like, for the streets. Like, oh, okay. What's going on? Somebody killed one of our home was. He was like, man, Smokey, you don't know him. So I just leaned back on the car as he told the story of this man getting shot in the head and in the body. And, like, I thought nothing of it be really on the strength of I had nothing to do with it. But weeks later, I went back to Norfolk, and the police came to my house and said I killed somebody in Hopewell.
So this crime happened in broad daylight, and around the time that it happened, you were with other people.
Yeah, I was in a house full of people at the time when it happened. So, and my lawyers didn't call my witnesses. They said that the Commonwealth was gonna cross my witnesses up, but the witnesses were telling the truth. So it was, at 17, and you really don't know the law, you really don't know, fearful, because at that time in my life, I was in a transition of being in Islam. The white man was the devil. And even though I had a white lawyer at the time, he was telling me like, yo, it's gonna be a jury full of white people. So I'm scared. I'm nervous. I'm like, I'm gonna get up here, and there's gonna be all these old white people telling me I killed somebody. You know, so I didn't take the jury trial, which I should have, not knowing at the time, because I had always, any charges I've ever had, I always played guilty. You know, I've been locked up for stealing, alteration of a substance, little stuff I did as a youth. I pled guilty to my charges. I went and served my time in detention or upstate, you know what I'm saying, in Beaumont. But I couldn't say I killed the man I never saw before.
So can we go back just a little bit? Do you know the person who implicated you as the shooter?
Yeah, Sean Coleman. Yeah, the nickname Cluck. Yeah, I know. Me and his brother used to hang together. You know what I'm saying? Me and Sean had been in detention together. And that was what he had told the people in trial. He tried to act like he didn't know me. And if you go and read my pre-trial report, like my book coming out, and the pre-trial reports is in there, and he went through there and he told the people like he didn't know me. But witnesses that were out when he was telling the story ended up coming in court to my pre-trial and said, hey, we was all out there when Sean was telling us what happened.
So do you think he implicated you out of convenience, or was it a setup from the beginning?
It was out of convenience. One, because he used my nickname at first, because my nickname is Smokey. He used my nickname, and they knew that I didn't live in the area of Hopewell and Petersburg. I was staying in Norfolk. So out of convenience, yeah, you can throw somebody's name out. People do it all the time. We see this now with the YSL court case and stuff. Like, people throw names out there not knowing that the police gonna come and find you. Because it was, at the time, it was only 2 people named Smokey in the Hopewell area. There was Old Head, Smokey Flower, and me. So when you say my nickname, like, the people came to get me, you know? So, and that was it. No gun, no motive, no reason, no why.
So there was no real beef between
No,
you
I
and
never
him?
saw the guy, but Sean, no beef with me and Sean. It was another witness that was standing next to him, Norris Hardy. Norris said that it wasn't me. He was standing next to the victim when he got killed. He told the people in court that it wasn't me. So you got one person standing on one side of the man, the other person standing on the other side, and both of y'all saying 2 different stories.
Wow. Okay. Do you think that possibly he was the one who committed the crime, or he knows who it was?
Yeah, I believe from listening to the guy's family, Danny's family, and everybody, Sean kept calling Danny all day to meet him that morning. To meet him. And when he finally met him, he got killed.
So Danny is the person that...
Danny McClure was the guy to get killed. And as I have in my post being home release, kind of found out who really did the crime. And the name was mentioned in my paperwork, but it wasn't pulled back. You know, they didn't really. But the person who really did it, he's passed away now. He had a stroke and he's dead now. Rayshawn Lee. So now, as time has went on, we found out, and it was post my best friend, Big L. He really kind of found out because he was riding with another guy from around Hopewell, and he was riding with the guy since we've been home, because Big L did some time too, and he was riding with the guy, and it came up about me being incarcerated for so long. And he was like, yeah, man, Smoke ain't do that. Rayshawn did it. And which Big L's one of my best friends, it kind of hurt him because he told him, he said, man, y'all let Smoke sit in prison all those years for something he didn't do, and y'all sitting out here and knew it. He was like, it just turned him. It just turned, he got vengeance about it. He got mad because, like, we all knew I didn't do it. But for somebody to tell you, like, this the person that really did it, you know what I'm saying? It kind of hurt when you know your best friend was incarcerated for a murder that he didn't commit. You know what I'm saying? And L tell anybody, like, you talk to him, he'll be like, yo, bro, I ain't do it.
So needless to say, you were not happy with your representation. You didn't get to call the witnesses that could have proven that you weren't where they said you were at the time.
No
of the crime.
gun, didn't get to call my witnesses. I had a court-appointed lawyer now who's a judge now. He was a lawyer. Then I ended up getting a paid lawyer who did my appeals and stuff. And there's a law called Strickland versus Washington. And in Strickland versus Washington is a two-prong so that you can't argue a lawyer's strategy. And with my lawyer not calling these witnesses, they saying his strategy, we can't argue. You know, but even in the midst of, when you look at my newspaper article, murder's supposed to be beyond a reasonable doubt. The Judge Lamont, before he found me guilty, he tilted his glasses down. He said this case was 50-50. It could have went either way. But I found the defendant, Eugene Porter, guilty. That day I heard the loudest scream, and I turned around and looked, and everybody was gone. Everybody ran out of court. And here it is, you saying murder, you saying this case, and even in the newspaper article, it says the case was down the middle.
So the judge said it was 50-50.
Yeah, the judge said, his mind.
Which kind of, as you alluded to, yeah, the reasonable doubt, but he still found you guilty.
Still found me guilty.
Porter became known as inmate 225345 until it was changed to 1170747. Now, prison has to be rough for anyone who is actually guilty. So being not guilty, how did you survive in there? How what was your mindset?
The thing for me in prison that I never was really in prison. And I say that in certain standards of it, I still had dreams. Like, I still believed in the justice system to a point. I said, they're gonna find out I didn't do this. My thing was, when I first got there, I set goals. I said, okay, I'm gonna get my GED. I'm gonna let my hair grow. I'm gonna work out, and I'm gonna get out on my appeal, and I'm gonna go to college. So I kept setting goals for myself that kept me focused enough to not go crazy, because it was moments of not seeing your family. Even when you're in prison and your counselors have to read your paperwork. And I remember my counselor, Miss Tan, I gave her my paperwork. I said, I'm not supposed to be here. I said, like, for a long time, I didn't even have to do programs, because when they read my paperwork, And it was like, you're not supposed to be here. And they read my paperwork, and it was like, just survive. Basically, that's basically, they was like, just do you, Jay. Like, Porter, do you? Because it was like, they like, yo, this kid is not supposed to be here, and it's plain in the paperwork. But here it is, he's here, and he's got 25 years to do.
Now, was it anyone in prison that kind of mentored you, kind of put you under their wing a little bit, because you were a young man, 17, right? Or around?
Yeah, I was 17, 18. I turned 18 in prison. It wasn't just one person. I'll say that. Like, I have real brothers. That I have brothers. We're not related by blood, but we walked through the trenches of that storm together. They lost parents, brothers, sisters, family members. Like, we had to hold each other up. When I first went to prison, it was a lot of territorial stuff. It was Richmond against DC. It was the Tidewater area against everybody. So everybody sectioned off. And me, I was associated with the Petersburg area, the Tri-Cities. And they would be like, everybody in the system be like, them Tri-City dudes, them Petersburg dudes, they strong, they gonna fight. Anybody that got into something, they wanted to see where Petersburg stood with it, because we're gonna fight, we're going. Like, so it was that, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was sectioned off because, like, you know, Richmond dudes had a lot of dope things. The Portsmouth area, they were really like sneaky. They gamble, you know what I'm saying? The DC area, if you're from Northern Virginia up, you act like you can box. Like, everybody, they can fight and didn't want to get whooped. You know what I'm saying? So it was just sectioned off. We didn't really have gangs until later. Like, the gang, you may have a few Bloods or Crips that came in from different areas, but on the whole, in the early 90s, the way it is now, it didn't exist like that.
Okay.
You know, so, but a lot of people mentored me, and I really walked along a lot, you know what I'm saying? Because I didn't really trust a lot of people. So I really walked along besides the people I worked out. Like, all I wanted to do was work out. Put me in, I told them they could put my bed out there. Let me work out. That's what kept me sane, and the fact that I wanted to learn. And to be, one of the things that really saved me, and I said this in an interview before, that I lost God when I went to prison.
What do you mean by that?
I lost God because you tell a kid at 17 that he's going to spend 25 years in prison for a murder he didn't commit. And you're telling this kid to pray. And I felt like God had failed me. If no man didn't know that I didn't take this man's life, God knew. And I get so caught up when people always say that thing of, well, if you wouldn't have went to prison, you might would have been dead out here. And my thing is, God don't need no he don't need no cosign. And if God intended for me to come to an point where I am now, he could have did 95 or 301. You know what I'm saying? You didn't have to take the long route. You know what I'm saying? If he had intentions for me at 15, 16, 13, coming to Emporia, you could have took me straight up 95. You didn't have to take me up 301 to get here, to where I'm at. And some people may say, well, you needed that because, no, not. So me, I didn't want to hear about nobody's God. I didn't want to hear about Jesus Christ, Muhammad, Buddha. I didn't want to hear none of that. And so one of the things that really also saved me in prison is because I became a part of the nation of gods and earths. I became a part of the 5% nation. And when you become a 5%er, you learn about the weight of the world is on your shoulders. The weight of the world is 662 tons. And you got to be able to carry that weight. And so that's what I had to do. I couldn't keep praying and hoping God was going to break the gate down and let me out. So I was a Muslim before I went to prison. At a young age, my first time going to detention, I became a Muslim, started studying the faith. But in prison, I used to hear about the 5% Nation before I went to prison, when I was living in Norfolk. And I was in a TV room one day, and I used to see these dudes standing in a circle, and it's called a cipher. They was talking, and they had eye and eyes. They was talking about things. I used to always stand on the outside of the cipher. And one day, the guy Life, he asked me, said, "What are you seeking?" He said, "You always stand outside of the cipher. What you seeking?" I said, "I'm seeking knowledge." He said, "Who are you?" And I told him my Muslim name. I said, Camille Ali Kwan. So in the 5%, everything goes by the supreme alphabet, supreme math, the lessons. So they ended up, my first enlightener, they broke down my name, my Muslim name. I was able to keep it, but it became King Allah, Master of Islam, which I truly love. Ali means the Most High. Kwan means Master of the Universe. But then my enlightener, powerful, he started calling me Supreme Allah. So I had to walk around in that, you know, and it made me, I became an elder god at a young age. At 18, 19, I was an elder because I would read so many books. I read Albert Einstein, and one of the things I read in Albert Einstein's biography was he used to be so deep into his thoughts that the same path that he used to walk home every day, he would be so deep into his thoughts that he would get lost. And I used to tell my guys that I wanted to forget how to tie my shoe. And in saying that, it's like the mediocre things, the small things don't matter. You know, so that's what kept me. Once I knew that I was an A God, you know what I'm saying? At the time I didn't differentiate, but as I grew and developed in my lessons, I know that I'm not the capital G. I know I'm not the big all in all God. But even in the Bible, it says, Psalms 82 said, "Did I not say that ye are gods, but you should dare like men?" And so when I took that on, I know who I am. I'm a king, I'm a God, I'm an alien. You know what I'm saying? I walk in that manner around people. So being a 5%er is what really saved me, because I had lost my family. My mother didn't come see me for 10 years. She didn't want to see me that way. My little sisters was 11 and 12 when I left. My baby sister, she started coming to see me when she was 18. You know, my god brother, who later in 1999 got killed by the police, he held me down. Him and his brother and his mother, they held me down. It wasn't a time that I didn't pick up that phone and call, that they didn't answer. You know, if I needed money, they would send it. So it was that. And then the brothers that I, Lil Benji, you know what I'm saying? He's my brother, locked up. He's home now. Lil Rick, Lucky, you know what I'm saying? Let me say, Benji from Richmond. Me and his sister went to school together, you know what I'm saying? Lil Rick is from Newport News. Lucky's from Newport News. So these guys have become my brothers there. Even to this day, being home, all of us home, we call each other. And when we're going through trials and tribulations of being free, you know, the title of my book is Freedom Really Free. You know, because we talked about it on the rec yards. Like, man, I get out there, we gonna da-da-da. And we get out here and we see this world is totally different than what we imagined. That it was gonna be, we thought it was gonna be easy. But our most difficult wars and fights have been since we've been home.
So it seems like you found your spiritual path, and you kind of found people that were able to mentor you. Were there any programs that the institution itself had in place for you to get an education or to learn a skill or trade, so that you would be able to, you know, become a functioning citizen once released?
As a youth, I always wanted to be educated. So I ended up getting my GED. I scored some of the highest scores on my GED. I think the lowest I had scored, I got a 46 in math. Everything else was 50s and 60s. After that, I went on to I have 4 trades. I'm auto mechanic certified, building, commercial cleaning certified, business and data, and HVAC certified. So, and I have 30 college credits. So I went on, I continued my education, like, wow, I didn't like I said, I just kept setting goals. And every trade or so that I took, it was so, because I always wanted to be my own business. So every trade I took that I could possibly have a business out of.
So when you were released, you had a plan of what you wanted to do when you were on the outside.
Yes, I did. I planned because, like I say, man, without a plan, if you don't have a plan, you plan to fail. So yes, I did have plans, like how it was gonna look. And I was blessed at the same time. I got home February 6, 2012. March the 9th, I got my first job the day after my birthday. I was working at Toll Brothers. I learned how to build headers and the inside framework of buildings and homes. So yeah, I had a plan.
So if you were able to give advice to someone about to be released or newly released on something that they could do to help them not have to go back, not fall in the same traps that led them to prison to begin with.
Well, what I tell guys, now I speak at the prison. I go back and speak, and I'm working on some more public speaking things. But when I go back to this prison and I speak, I try to give them the 6 laws of success about how to make it. I'm working on another thing called the martial arts of reentry. But what I tell a lot of guys, whatever you learn in prison, take it and try to make it. If you're in prison, you're doing tattoos, use it out here. You know, if you can do a tattoo with the inside of a Walkman or a CD player and a needle, if you can do that and make a picture look good, come out here and get the real stuff and do it. If you're cutting grass on the rec yard, if you're cutting grass, come out here and start a landscaping crew. If you're painting, whatever you're learning, whatever job, I was a prep cook in prison, you know what I'm saying? Whatever job I did, try to make a job of it out here. Another thing about reentry, about returning, and I tell people this, in prison I was never depressed. And people find that amazing, like, yeah. And I was talking to a guy who was incarcerated, hey, have you ever got depressed? And he's like, yeah, I was depressed. I said, no, I'm not saying, I'm talking about on a full scale of depression. We were too busy to get depressed. We would get disappointed. If they ain't have rec today or the food or something, you'll get disappointed. You may go through a sign up if somebody passes or you lose somebody, a family member. But to sit in depression, I didn't start getting depressed until I got released. Because when I'm sitting around and not doing something, I feel like I'm wasting time. And I feel like I already wasted enough. So when I'm in my own thoughts, that's when I started thinking about what I could be doing more. So that's the thing. And to get therapy. I just wrote a poem about PTSD, you know what I'm saying? And I just changed the whole acronym of it because we have it too. We have PTSD, but it's just different. You know what I'm saying? And so those parts of being released and what the journey that I've taken to be a better person, do I fall short at times? Yeah, in other people's eyes. You know what I'm saying? I come up short, but I know I'm sticking to the plan. My whole mission and my plan is not to go back to prison and to save these young people, because I speak a lot about their brand. You know what I'm saying? I was known to do stuff, so it's easy to associate me with something bad when it came time. But now it's like I want to be known for doing good things and helping people.
Can you tell us how we got to this setting, Strong Temple?
So I used to work out all the time in prison. And another person had a gym around. Matter of fact, a police officer, he had a gym, and I went in there one day and I was working out. I was like, man, I had went and I told my ex-wife, like, yo, I found this gym I could work out at. And things was going good at first, but it wasn't how it was supposed to be. It wasn't what the universe or God wanted for me. And so I started training outside with people. And I had 3 people. And I used to go and talk to this pastor, and he told me that he he saw me walking one day with a bunch of people behind me. And from that day forward, it moved on to what it is now with Strong Temple. I made a business plan later on. Like when I jumped out the boat, I had nothing. I made a business plan later on, and we killed it from there. So, and it built a birth to Strong Temple and what it is now, where we help the people in the community that can't afford to go to the high price gyms and things of that nature. It's very family oriented. There's a lot of love in here. A lot of things that we do is done in that manner, trying to help each other, pull each other up. And one of my things is pull as I climb. As I climb up, I want to pull other people up.
Strong Temple Fitness and Training Center was established in 2016. Strong is an acronym meaning standing together, relying on God. The facility is located in the historical part of Emporia, Virginia, directly in front of the old train depot. In addition to the gym, you also have boxing programs that you're working on as well?
I'm a USA boxing coach. I have amateur fighters. I do a 5K every year in Emporia. Whatever I can do to give back to the community or to the people. Because like one of my things, I feel like I'm obligated to this area because a lot of the people, a lot of the officers and things of that nature that watched me grow up in prison were from this area. So with that being said and done, I try to give back and save their generations. Like because I may run into somebody and, oh, such and such, that's my grandma or that's my auntie. So I feel like I'm obligated to help their kids because they helped me when I was at the lowest point of my life. They didn't treat me, a lot of people didn't treat me like a state number. They valued who I was as a young man.
Well, thank you for taking the time to speak with me, to answer questions and kind of enlighten and tell our viewers about your story and how it's led you to this point where you're giving back so much to the community.
I appreciate it. And like I said, there's more to come. So I just tell them to stay tuned for the book and everything. By the time this video come out, the book will be out. I want to do public speaking all around the world and tell my story and just help other people that's going through similar things, family members.
All right. Blessings to you.
Thank you.
Come home.
I've been home 10 years. I got a gym. I live in Florida.
Oh yeah, I see you one time with Bubba. Stopped by a long time.
Yeah, my cousin check on Bubba.
Now we get this time.
She's slacking in the gym, yo.
Yeah,
This gym attire right here. This gym attire right here.
She's supposed to carry down this so I can train her.
Yeah.
I am.
Don't break your camera.
What about me now? What about me?
You ain't got a pose. It's not that type of camera.
They're doing video. We're doing a documentary of when I got locked up.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we
So
doing.
like she wasn't even born when I left.
Damn, that's crazy.
How long you was? 20 years.
Yeah, I was listening. I left in 19. All right, we back at the location of the Breeze Inn convenience store where they say the murder took place at. In all actuality, this is my first time ever being at this scene. Even before the crime, I had never been to Breeze Inn before. Really didn't have no reason to come up this way. But they said Mr. McClure lost his life in this parking lot.